year, International Women's Day focuses on climate change and sustainability. So how appropriate is it to kick off with Israel's Minister of National Infrastructure, Energy and Water Resources, Karine Elharrar? The daughter of immigrants from Morocco, Minister Elharrar is deeply involved in her country's response to environmental issues. Thank you for taking the time with the Media Line.
Glad to be here.
So you've learned a lot of lexicon, words about energy. How does that feel?
Well, in the past 8 months, that's what I've been doing, energy and energy words, and it's been fascinating. It's a really whole word, and as we can see, energy is the most important issue that the world is dealing with right now. So I guess it's a real opportunity for Israel, for the region, and for me to lead something new.
Minister Elharrar, despite the intense reactions and endless arguments over environmental issues, officials such as yourself are charged with addressing the needs from small to large crisis, regardless of the cause. What is the top priority for the Middle East?
I think we need to take energy and make it an advantage and make it a cause of cooperation and partnerships between the countries in the region. I think that each country has an advantage over the other. I see Israel as a midpoint between the old world of energy and the new world of energy. And I think it's a real opportunity for Israel as a technological country. You know, they call us startup nation country, which we are, and we need to take this advantage and to push it forward. Most of the European countries committed to net zero by 2050, Israel as well. And we have the sense of renewables, and hydrogen is relatively new, but we don't have a sense of many other technological opportunities that will make us the path to go there.
For example?
I don't know. There are things that we don't know about. Just recently, people have been talking about green hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is relatively old. You know, we're talking about time frames that are changing very quickly. We know about renewables, but renewables will not be the solution for 100% green energy. And our goal, my goal as the Minister of Energy, is to make a mixture of energy sources so we can get there. And I think that we have an advantage of technological ideas that we can make it.
When thinking about water in the Middle East, many still envision endless miles of sand dunes stretching far into the horizon, the only water found at an elusive oasis. As the minister charged with water resources, what are your thoughts about its supply and particularly its distribution?
Well, Israel is a water miracle. We are located in the middle of the desert, and we suffered in the past from shortage of water. And due to desalination, we are able now to supply water not only for Israelis but also for our neighbors. Just recently I signed a DOI with the Emirates and Jordan, so we can sell them up to 220 million cubic meters of water, and we can buy from them generated renewable energies from Jordan. I think it's great. It's mitigation and adaptation, and it's due to the ability of Israel to supply water.
Do you feel that more and more countries, even enemies of Israel, are going to join on this bandwagon?
I really welcome every country to be our partners, and we are definitely for more and more countries to join the Abraham Accords. and I hope it will be happening soon.
Anything you can share?
Well, not yet.
It's become cliche to hear people predict that the next war will be fought over water. Is that fact or fiction?
It could get to there, and we hope not. I think that's why it's Israel's interest to help other countries in the region, for example, Jordan, which we have a strategic border with them, and hopefully it will not come to there. But we see that climate crisis is not something that we are talking about the far future. It's here and now, and we cannot just think that we could be blind to it. So we need to work together, many countries, to make sure that it would not get to be a crisis, a big crisis, and cause the war.
As we speak, the drums of war are sounding. How will the conflict over the Ukraine issue affect world oil prices?
Well, as we can see, it's affecting already, and hopefully they will come to a solution. I really hope that the talks with Biden, Macron, and Zelensky will get us somewhere. We see the crisis in Europe, and that leads to a conclusion, which I think is our main goal, is to make a diverse mixture of energy sources. We cannot rely on one source of energy. We need to have neutral gas, renewable, hydrogen, and other energy sources. That's the way to avoid a crisis like we are facing now in Europe.
Not long ago, Arab neighbors in once oil-rich nations began looking for alternative sources of wealth, feeling the future would not sustain the vast wealth obtained from the region's oil industries. So, apropos what you just said, where are they heading? Where are the Middle Eastern countries heading in terms of oil?
I think that oil is still a part, but I can definitely see a change of minds, and I think that we are riding a path that nobody can neglect anymore the thought that we must think about a more green energy. I joined a conference last week in Cairo, and there were countries from Middle East and Africa, and everybody talked about climate crisis. When you talk about it, you must do something about it. And as far as I can see it, and my opinion is that even the oil countries, they know we cannot just continue the same way as before, and we must change our habits of using oil and gas for for the future. It's something that we need to change, and I think it's going to change because everybody wants to be a part of, the countries that the common countries that are fighting the climate crisis. Next COP is in Sharm, in Cairo, and I really hope that we can see some changes between last COP and today.
Anything you can share in terms of the meeting in Cairo?
Well, it was a great conference. I had a great talks with my colleagues from Cyprus, from Egypt, and hopefully we will be able to talk about a new cooperation soon.
Why did you call for canceling the deal with the UAE to transport crude oil via Israel to Europe?
I think it's not a deal between the UAE and Israel. It was a deal between companies. And the fact that Israel will only be a bridge of transporting oil in a massive quantities is very risky for Israel's environment, for Israel's tourism. And I thought the money that the state of Israel can get out of it from taxes is not worth it. But I know that they've come to an agreement of the companies, and the Ministry of Environment is taking care of it. Hopefully, we will not be facing disaster.
When we hear about the possible gas deals that include Israel and Arab nations, we have to wonder what are the chances that fuel will become the linchpin for peacemaking rather than the catalyst for war. So expanding upon what you've said earlier, there are issues of security in terms of gas and oil as well. Is there room for flipping everything and having cooperation with Arab nations in terms of the security as opposed to always looking at it as a fight over energy?
It is. I think that it doesn't have to be a reason for war. It can also be a reason for peace. And I think that our reservoirs, our natural gas reservoirs that Israel has been blessed with, are sometimes a bridge between countries. And I'm very happy and proud to be the Minister of Energy that can lead to partnerships and cooperation between Israel and other countries. I think that not only neutral gas should be a way of leading to it, but also renewables. Israel is a small country and suffers from shortage of open fields, but our neighbors have many open fields, and we can cooperate like we did with Jordan to buy from them green energy from renewables. I hope we can expand these kind of agreements with other countries.
Israel set a target of producing up to 40% renewable energy by 2030.
30%.
30%. Oh, it went down. Okay.
No, it was never
40.
It was
okay,
never.
I'm glad that you've clarified that. So there have been some kind of disagreements between the Ministry of Environment and your ministry on how to actually deal with this. Dealing with renewable energy, how to store it, whether to use the sun in certain times of the year. What is the problem?
I don't see it as a problem. The Ministry of Energy is the responsible ministry for renewables. We have to understand it's not that easy. It's not that you put a solar panel, you put it in the plug, and there you go, you have renewable. It's a very bureaucratical thing to do, and if you compare Israel to other countries, most of our renewable would be from the sun, from solar. I don't think, comparing to other countries, there is no other country except maybe Honduras that has such a high percentage of renewables from the sun. We don't have wind, we don't have thermal, we don't have nuclear, so it's only mostly solar. And it's very difficult thing to do. What I've said, and I agreed with the Ministry of Environment, is that we have to think of more ways to expand green energy in Israel. But it doesn't have to be only renewable. And also in the world, nobody would think that only renewable will bring the solution. Solution would be from a mixture of energy sources. And that's what we are working on.
Does this trickle down to education and actually teaching youth from a young age in Israel that sustainability is different today?
Definitely. I think that everything starts and ends with education. And we are very much involved with the Ministry of Education to educate the children from a very early stage that environment is not something that belongs to a certain population, but to everybody, and we all have to be a part of saving the planet.
Minister Elharrar, you seem to attract the attention of power people at propitious programs. You elicited an apology from the British Prime Minister when a conference under his auspices lacked wheelchair facilities, and you more recently received the greeting heard by the world where President Sisi crossed the auditorium floor to welcome you. So it seems that you're involved in women's empowerment as well as environment. How does that feel?
Well, I have to say it was a bit awkward for me to get all the attention in Glasgow. It was not from the right perspective as far as I can see it. But I want to take this advantage and call many more women to join the energy world. It's really something that I cannot get, that when I enter a room, most of the people are men. And I think that we should encourage more and more women to come and be a part.
Why do you think that is?
You know, it was designed as a man's word, and I think that we should change it. And I'm working on it. But I think it was very nice of Sisi to welcome me, and it was really a warming gesture. And I hope that we'll have more and more meetings between Israelis and other countries from the region. And I really want the next conference to be with more women.
International Women's Day. It's all about women, and this year it's about climate change and sustainability. So as I began this interview, we talked about how it was really appropriate to speak with you. What is really your message you would convey? And you started to say more women in energy. Take it the next step in terms of what they should be doing in terms of their homes, the buying power they have, the things that they do in terms of energy as well.
I think that what I really want to happen is that more women will be everywhere. Also energy, but not only. Energy is a sector that I'm dealing with these days, but I can tell it in any sector. And there's a say of the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when they will be 9 for the Supreme Court. So I want women to be everywhere, and hopefully we can get there.
You weren't always dealing with energy, so what's really your passion?
I came to politics with a passion of education, welfare, health. But you know, when you really think about it, it's already combined. And energy is about education as well. And it can cause or disturb the health. And I think it's a new and fascinating word, but it's all coming together eventually.
Where did you learn English?
At school.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
Minister Elharrar, we talk to youth, and I'd love to really convey a message to a young woman who's thinking of going into politics, to be sitting in your seat one day. What would you say to her?
If it's really your passion, dream about it and do it. You can do it like any man and even better. And please don't give up your hopes and dreams.
When you spend time with your young kids, and I'm sure you don't have enough of that
Not
these
enough.
days, what are the favorite things you like to do?
Just to sit with them, read to them stories, and just to hear about what they want to do and, do all in my ability to fulfill their dreams. Their dreams.
Minister Karine Elharrar, quite a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing as the International Women's Day is upon us.
Thank you very much.